Yeah, so welcome back to my YouTube class, my AutoCAD YouTube class. So today we'll be talking about dimension. We'll be taking dimension on today's class. So our dimension is located close to our text, as you can see here. So underneath our dimension, we'll take note of annotation. So for the lower version, I think 2007, once we click on dimension, we just click on dimension style directly. But for a higher version, I think from 2012 upward, once we click on dimension, underneath dimension, we'll click on annotation. So under annotation, this pops up. So see standard. Then as you can see text style there. Then underneath that, we'll see dimension style. So we'll click on dimension style. So after clicking on dimension style, we'll click on manage dimension style. So once we click on that, it will bring us here. So once we're here, we'll click on modify. It brings us here. So start from primary unit. We'll click on primary unit. Under primary unit, we'll click precision to select. So this is precision here. So click on precision. We'll always make sure our precision is set on 0. So set that to be 0. Then after that, I think that is pretty much all we need to set under primary unit. Then next we'll move to text. So under text, we should make sure our align with dimension is always tick. This should be like the first thing we always check for once we click on text. We should make sure this is always checked. So under that, just in case you want to give your text color, as if you want to print it in colored, you could select various colors. Then to our right here, as you can see, for those of you that play video games, then when we are trying to build up a player or build up a character, once you click nose, it will show us how the nose will be, eyes will look like, and the body structure. So that is the same thing. That is this small screen we have here. So for those of you like myself that like to print out mostly in black and white, just leave it in by block. So, and if you won't be printing in color, I really do not see any need to fill the color. Fill the color means this right here. It's to fill the background of your dimension. And if you print this in black and white, it will make it dark. It won't really make any sense. So just leave it in none. Click on none, so it takes that off automatically. Sorry, it takes that off automatically. So after that, we go to textile. So under textile, in front of standard, we'll see a small box very close to standard. We'll click on that box. So after clicking on the box, it brings us here. So what you need to edit is the height. So take note, when we are playing around with heights, we don't need to use more than 200, 250 or 300. So anything more than 300 will look unnecessarily too big. That is for dimension lines. But it depends. Okay, if you want to give it a title, like maybe ground plan, we can use something bigger, maybe 400 for instance. But for dimensions, don't let us go beyond 200 to 300. So after we setting our height, then we go to font name. Most times I like using Comic Sans because of my kind of personality. Anyways, I draw on the side, so it just gives the whole plan a comic feel to it for me. Or if I'm not using Comic Sans, we have a whole lot of fonts here, so you can select any which one you're comfortable with. So if I'm not using Comic Sans, I go for Star Loss BT. So once I'm done with that, and look at my font here, is my font style here is a Roman. I think that's by default. Then once we're done, we'll click on apply. So the most important thing that we are editing here is the height. That's the height of our dimension and the font to what we want. Then once we're done, we'll click apply, and we'll click on close. I would, for those of you that don't really catch up real fast with learning new softwares, I would just advise you can get like a note and a pen to take notes, to take notes, so that you won't forget these things. So moving forward, the next thing we'll click on is symbol. So we'll click on symbols. Then as you can see here, our arrow lines, you can see architectural tick. That is what I use mainly, but most architects or designers prefer to use arrow, so you could set it on whichever one you want to use. If you're using arrow, make sure you set arrow for all of this. Then arrow size, you can edit your arrow size to be a lot bigger, so it will show a lot clearer. As you can see, 300, that's how it looks like. 350, it gets a lot bigger than that, comes out bigger. But for me, I like to use the architectural tick. It just makes my work I don't know, I just vibe with it. So you can go with arrow is more common and more popular, but personally I prefer the architectural tick. So moving forward, once we're done with our symbol, then we go to line. So under line we have line width, sorry, we have dimension lines and we have extension lines. They are divided into two. So we have some settings we need to do under our dimension lines, which is our line width, as you can see here. So we should always make sure our line width is set to 0.00 mm. Always make sure our line width is set to 0.000 mm. Then once we are done with that, okay, our suppress lines, we have extension here all ticked. If yours is not tick, fine, but if yours is showing that it's tick, please untick it. Please untick it. So as you can see, our lines are dropping down. You can see here, that is what it did. But once we untick it, it will show our dimension lines almost touching our diagram here. So under extension lines, we also go to line width, then we set it to 0.00 mm. So our extend beyond dimension lines, make sure we always set this to 80. Then offset from origin, let's make sure we always set this to 150. So once we are done with that, I think that is pretty much it about lines. Then we click on OK, then we click on close. So we are done with our dimension settings. So if you want to start dimensioning, for example, we come here, you click, it's on linear at the moment, so we just drag it from here to this point, we drag it up. Personally, I do not like to do internal dimensioning. What I mean by internal dimensioning is something like this. For instance, I want to get the dimension of this space here, then I just put it here. For those of you that do architectural detailing, you know, we would have let's assume this is a room space. Now we have this space designed as a room. We have the bed, the head stand, there's going to be a couch in the room. We have that, the wardrobe area and all that. So having dimensions showing in between those spaces, for me, it just disturbs my view. So I don't like to put my internal dimension lines inside. So what I do is I put it outside. We'll get to that. So would personally, I dimension my external dimension before my internal dimension. That is what I do. So from there to there we have 9.175. That is my length. Then my breadth, we have that to be sorry, we have my breadth to be 4450. Okay, so we're good. So instead of having to dimension my internal dimension showing inside, what I do is I just pick from one point to one point, then I drag it up. So after dragging it up, as you can see, this dimension line is still cutting in between the lines, which is wrong. We'll get to that later. So before then, instead of having to always click on linear whenever I want to dimension and continue dimensioning, which is going to be stressful, what I do is I come to this, I click on the line, I click on this line, then I come to this point here, I come to the next line where I want to continue dimensioning. Once I just put the arrow there, I'm not going to click, I'll just put the arrow there, then it brings this out. Then we'll see continue dimension. We'll click on continue dimension. Automatically our line keeps, it just keeps dimensioning like that. So this is internal. I'm picking out my internal points. So just in case we have a continuous like that, just keep clicking from this point to that point. So that's it. So once we're done, you just use our escape key. Then there we have it. So in order for me to correct this, as you can see, my dimension line is cutting across my design, which is wrong. So what I do is I just click on everything, then click on the points I want to drag it from to the point I want it to dimension from. So as you can see that space. Those of you in the construction line, we know that our dimension lines are not supposed to touch our design. It is wrong. So it has to have that space in between. So we'll pick it one by one. Same thing applicable to this, then same thing applicable to this, and same thing applicable to this as well. So just drag it up, escape. So there we have it. Just drag it up and drag it up. So we have to move this. Okay, drag it up. Okay, just drag it up. Yep. So there we go. So in most cases, I really do not like putting my dimension, my wall dimension, because we all know our walls are mainly 225, or we use 150 depending on the area we are using the block work there. So in most cases I just delete the wall dimension, because if I'll be having continuous wall and I keep specifying 225, it's just going to make the dimension look clumsy. So once I'm done, I just take off my wall dimensions. So basically that is all about, that is mainly almost all about dimension. So in the case whereby we have we want to dimension something at an angle, let's say you have something like this, let's say you have something like this, for example, we have something like this, and we want to have to dimension from here to here. Obviously this is at an angle, so what we do is we click on this bar showing linear, we'll notice a very small arrow very close to it. We'll click on that arrow, so this pops up, this pops up, this pops up. So we'll click on sorry, just go through these things, it's in case you want to dimension angular, dimension radius and all that. So in this case we're using a line, so we'll just click from this point to this point and drag it up. It gives us that this is that is aligned. For angle, sorry, click on this for angle, arc length, radius, diameter, ordinates, jogged, and so on and so forth. But mainly these are the major lines you see by dimensioning. So you can also play around with those other dimension lines, that if you have more complex work to do. So that's my class on dimension. So from our next class we'll be taking elevations. Thank you very much for staying tuned, and please, for those of you that are still yet to subscribe, please kindly click on the subscribe button. I believe I've impacted knowledge to those of my students following up so far, so please, out of your kind heart, just be kind enough to just click on that subscribe button, please. Thank you very much for coming to my dimension class. Have an amazing day.